Gibson G40. This is a solid state amp, and this is the one that I put the post in on community, asking what we should do with this amp, assuming we can't get it running, and some very interesting ideas, including converting this into an espresso machine. But I don't think that'll be possible. An ant farm was another one, and I really can't remember the others. I'll have to go and check the comments. But anyway, enough of that. We'll have a look at this amp and see if it's repairable, or whether we're going to build something into it. On the description, it's a very interesting description on eBay, because it says this amp is 240 volts and the guy's had it plugged in, but it says 120 on the back, so it seems it's been converted at some time. The speaker is supposed to be a balloon, madam, like Mrs. Blenkinsop's TV. This amp is dead, there's nothing coming out of it, so that would make sense. So let's just have a look what we've got then, front panel wise. We've got volume, reverb, treble, bass, and it's obviously got a tremolo on there. Speed and intensity. Pretty simple looking amp, really. Let's have a look at the back. So you can see here it says 120 volts, but if you can see down there, it's got a UK plug on it. So, but I am going to put this on the Variac just to be sure. I wouldn't want to take that for granted. Speaker, I don't think that's the original speaker, but I could be wrong. It looks a bit nondescript to me. In fact, it looks like one of those cheap speakers you used to get from Radio Spurs years ago. So, and that's the dustbin lorry, so I'm just going to stop videoing for a moment. We've got this amp open. I must admit there was pictures of this when on eBay when I actually looked at it, but when you actually see it in the flesh, so to speak, I'm afraid bodged and Scarpa has been in here. Date initially there, just have a hone in on that. That is February 1974. Let's get back to this mess. So there's been numerous bodging going on. I've tested the speaker and it is balloon. The high impedance reading he was getting, because that's what he actually said in the description, is getting a very high impedance reading, is because he was testing it still connected, and he was getting that reading from the amplifier, not the speaker. The speaker is open circuit. So what's this? What is this? Is that some kind of joined wires? So that's the speaker cable, of course, there. So that's been joined. Explain to me why you would use that much tape to join two wires. It looks like it's something that's been wired for the national grid, but at least it's nothing particularly dangerous. However, speaking of dangerous, let's just hone in on these capacitors here, and you can see that these have just been tacked on because they couldn't be bothered to take the board out, and taking the board out on this wouldn't have been that difficult really, but these have just been botched in. We don't even know if these are the original wires. There's a radial there, look, on its side. That's just, words fail me. Yeah, I can hear everybody saying you've had a bit of a trousering with this one. I think you might be right. It didn't cost a lot of money though, and that, to be fair, I bought it more for the chassis and the case to build an amp into. Really, should we not get this thing working, just about every part of this amp has been messed with at some point. If we look, I mean, all of this is just a mess. Even if this amp runs, you know, that's all got to be addressed properly. What's this? More of the dreaded band-aid tape, I think we can call that, can't we? And look at that moving about. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Look how close that is to that resistor, look there. Can you see? Yeah, not a good idea. That could quite easily have got pushed onto there. Now, whether that's anything dangerous, but it's not good, is it, really? But this, dare we even power this up? Should we even bother to power this up? Let's have a look across, and you can see, if I just tip it, you can see the jack sockets there have been botched up at some time. Somebody's had a go at those. I think it's what we call bird poo soldering, and that's on the transistors as well. Plenty of bird poo on there. And this capacitor here has, not quite sure what's that looks like one of the original capacitors, but it's been tacked on, so it can't be really. 2N4508, I presume that's the transistors, that's the output transistors. So the chances are that speaker is open circuit, because this has got DC going through it, and it's just fried the voice coil when it's been switched on, I'm guessing. So evidence that this has been converted from 110 to 240. There's a bridge rectified there. Mains coming in there. Oh dear, look at the soldering on that switch. My God. Dear, oh dear, look at that. There, that's not, it's not, I don't expect that one's a bit iffy. That one's not, it's passable, but my word. And yeah, on that, oh, look at that. That's the reset on the back there. But I don't see any evidence that this has been converted, so maybe this just came into the country from Gibson at 240 volts, but they just didn't write it on the back. Yes, we need to be very careful when we're running this up. So I'm going to connect a speaker to it, only one of the cheap test speakers, because I'm betting that we get DC. Also, other than that reset, I don't see any other fuses. That was another thing he put in the description, that the reset wasn't triggering, so that indicates probably no shorts on it. But yes, so we'll get a speaker on it and we'll bring it up slowly on the Variac. It's got to be good for a laugh, if nothing else. And then after that we'll discuss what we're going to do with it. Right, here we go. I suppose we've got to put a meter on it somewhere or other, but should we just run it up first and see if it works? Let's put something on it just to monitor it. Let's just go on that node there. Dear, oh dear, they are so botched. You know, if you are going to do a topside repair on capacitors like that, at least J-hook them and then use some silicone to hold them down. But just to leave them like that. Right, let's start. Ooh! Yes, as I suspected there, I've only got 19 volts on that. Ooh. Yes. Yes, that is definitely like Mrs. Blenkinsop's TV. That is blown. So we're not going to go any further with that, are we? That's rather spoiled the fun. But it'll blow that speaker if I go up any more, because it's just got DC going onto it. In fact, let's put the meter on the speaker leads. Sorry about that. I've got the door open. It's rather hot today, so we've got the door open. I always have the door open really because I love the fresh air. I hate winter. Everybody's saying oh, it's too hot today, we don't like it. I love it. Right, so I've got the meter on there. We can see it. So let's just, you can see there's already a ½ volt. That'll probably be in the capacitor. So let's just turn that up and see what we get. Yeah. You can see there's DC on there. I know it says negative, but I've just got we can swap those around. There we go. And you can, and I've got 34 volts on the variac, and we've already got 4 going up there. 82 volts on the variac. We've got 10.7 volts going into that speaker, so that tells us that is, yes, it's blown. Dead short on the transistors. And going up, and you can see why that speaker's fried now. This has obviously been run at 240. I don't know whether I dare put 240 in it. I suppose the trip will go on the back if it. So if we go up to, there's 240 volts, and you can see now there's 31 volts going into, and you can see why that speaker's blown as that's been switched on, and that 31 volts has just hit that coil. It's popped it. So what do we do with this amp? It needs a pair of output transistors. Let's feel any of these if they're hot. The output transistors don't feel. That one's a bit lukewarm. That one's lukewarm. So it needs at least a pair of output transistors and possibly some of these transistors on the board. We could probably just about make use of these capacitors if we clean them up and tidy them up, but they don't look great, do they really? So we'd be looking at some caps for it. Another cap there. We don't even know if these are the original values unless we can find a schematic for this. That one again, botched. But that's not a huge deal, doing those capacitors. There's some solder work to tidy up on it. I think at the moment, looking at this, it's probably around 50-50. I think this, I personally wonder whether this is 110 volts. So looking at those transformer bolts, and that's definitely original. There's that's definitely not been changed. The solder looks original on the bridge rectifier. That looks factory. So I don't know whether this amp, I mean, it's got a plug on it, and it's got, actually no, they're American colours, aren't they? Black as hot. We've got blue. I don't know though what's going on there. They're not American colours. Is that brown? It's black. Look at the ground. Oh dear. So the mains flex has definitely been changed at some point, we know that. Right, I've just looked at the clock and it's time for lunch. So I'm off to have lunch and then I will return. Right, I've got the schematic for this amp. I've tested one of the output tubes, the one on the left side as we're looking at it, and that is blown. No question about it. But what we've got this schematic for is to determine whether this amp is 110 volts or 240 volts. And I've got, we look, where the pointer is, we'll use this pencil. I've got negative 35 coming off the bridge rectifier there. So we're at 110 volts there. Now I'm just going to put some more light on, because I had to turn them off with that paper because it was making the camera flicker. So let's see, we've just got the camera in there. Let's get the meter up. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to zoom out. Right, so I've got the meter there, and if we test coming out of this, it is there. I've got 14 volts. So let's see what we've got on there. 14 volts. Right, let's turn this up to 240. Sorry about the camera flickering there. 240, and there we go. So it appears that this amp is 240 volts. The actual meter that's making it flicker. Strange, cameras are weird things. So it appears this amp is 240 volts. So maybe this were made for the UK market, but they never put 240 on the back of it. Strange. Well, that's changed things a little bit, because if this amp was 110 volts, there'd be no way I would be thinking of repairing this amp. This amp wants quite a bit of work doing to it. One of the output tubes, look at me. One of the output transistors is blown. This one is blown, definitely. This one tests okay, but then we don't know if anything else in here is blown. These capacitors here, as we look on there, which obviously are these, as we can see the positive going, they are marked down on here as 500 microfarad, I think, at 35 volts. And there is 3 of them, C31, C33 and C35, and that's interesting to see. Have we got any markings on this board? No, we haven't, so that's not going to be easy either. So according to this schematic here, all 4 of these capacitors are 500 microfarad at 35 volts. We've got 1000, 1000, 470, yeah, and 470. So that would require 4 new capacitors there. 1 output transistor, but you'd be better off with a pair, really. And then this capacitor here, which I've got a feeling, thank you Shaft for that, could be this one here. Maybe got 1 there, 1 there, so that one's also should be 500 microfarad. However, we can't tell what that is because it's got the old band-aid tape on it, which we're now going to try and peel off there and see if there's a value on that one. And they've obviously done that, because I think it's looking what they've done there. Actually, let's have a look. Oh, that's a radial. That's what they've done. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. $470 at 63. Sorry about the camera there. So 470s would do it. It also wants a speaker, but to be fair, if I had to convert this to a tube amp, it still needs a speaker, so that's hardly an issue. So a bit of thought now and decide what. I mean, we've got capacitors here, but these are only small ones. These would need changing. Some of these transistors could be blown as well, but I'm guessing it is just that one that's blown. But yes, that's unsightly mess. Having said that, if we changed all those capacitors, you know, we'd be well halfway there to tidying this amplifier up. Tidy that one up there, tidy that one up there, it wouldn't look half so bad. And then it's just a matter of getting rid of the bird poo solder in various places on that switch, on these jack sockets. So I think at this point now, we have sorted out that this amplifier is 240 volts, judging by that schematic. That tells us that it is. All the voltages appear to be correct. I think I'm going to go off and do a bit of a tot up and see how much the parts are going to be for this amplifier, and then go online and see whether or not it's worth repairing, how much these are fetching second hand. And of course we've got to factor in a speaker for that, but as I say, we'd have to put a speaker in it anyway. So might have had a couple of pots changed as well. I think someone's had this board out. Oh dear, you can just see, if we just get in close there, you can see those have been severely burned, so I'll have to take those back, cut those back and redo them. It looks like someone's had this board out instead of just undoing the pots. Maybe they've just decided to. Having said that though, the others don't look like they've been touched, so maybe that pot's different. You can't see that. I might just be able to tilt it. That's a different pot. You can see they're more a goldy colour and they're a different body on them. And there's two of those been changed. That one's not sparked, that's over here. You probably can't see that, just a bit of it. Remove my cable, but that one's not sparkling either, the soldering on that. So, but we could doctor those up, no problem. That's no big deal to tidy those up. This here on this switch, if we look here, you can see there's a bit of a botch up going on there with this wire. That's just been laid across the top. That one's laid on there on the switch. So that's obviously when it's had this new cable put in, I would think. There's some messy soldering work there, but they're again, not a big job to tidy that up, is it? Just clean those contacts, redo the wires and put them through the holes. So not a big job. Speaker socket there. Is that a speaker? What is that? Oh, that's the foot switch. And yes. So if we look at the foot switch socket there, we'll just ease that forward. So if we hone in there, you might be able to see here that one side of that's been disconnected. So was that originally joined across there and there, or has something been removed from there? I'll have to look on the schematic for that, won't I? See if I can find it. But we'll worry about that later. The main thing is with this amp is it worth repairing? Do we rip all this out and make another project out of it? So I'm going to go away now, and we're going to do a bit of maths on the cost of this amplifier and see if it's worth doing. So I've decided to go ahead with this. I'm going to sort this amp out. I'm going to replace these capacitors, which I've just ordered, and replace all the electrolytics that we've got there. I've ordered some of these tips as well, because we're going to replace those. And obviously we're going to replace both the output transistors as well, and I think that will make a nice amp. At the moment I'm not opting to replace the small ones, but I'm going to test those and just make sure they're okay. And then the rest of the things that are damaged, such as this wire that's burnt, we'll replace that. Tidy up all the soldering on these pots, so you can't see that on the camera. Tidy this soldering up here, and obviously remove the last of the band-aid. And I think this will make a nice amp when it's done. It's got reverb, it's got tremolo as well. I think it'll be a nice tool when it's finished. And you know, it's nearly 50 years old, so I think it's it deserves a second chance. So that's going to do it for this one. That's just an assessment of this amp, and then part 2, which might be a while away, but a couple of 3 weeks even, maybe more, but we're going to come back to this amp and we're going to restore it in part 2. So that's all for this one. So thanks for watching. You all take good care, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye bye for now.